Before World War One, Italy, Germany and Austria-Hungary entered into an alliance called the Dreibund, or the Triple Alliance. This left Berlin and Vienna confident that the southwest border would be secure in the event of a war. This changed when Italy began demanding territories off of Austria-Hungary, lands such as South Tyrol, Gorizia, the Dalmatians, all lands that either have a high Italian population or Italy just wanted to expand their empire. Germany encouraged Austria to concede these lands. It was important that Italy remain neutral, but of course Austria refused. This led to Italy declaring war on Austria in May of 1915. During 1914, the planned expansion of the fortresses in Tyrol and Carinthia just didn't happen, essentially. All the resources were shifted up to the Eastern Front, and any sort of military build-up could provoke the Italians, which of course is the last thing that the Austrians wanted. So the southwestern frontier was completely exposed and undermanned. The Tiroler Kaiserschützen and the Kärntner Landwehr, they took heavy losses in Galicia in the opening stages of the war, meaning that the Landwehr that were supposed to be defending these territories were completely decimated and unable to do so. The KUK army scraped together what little men they could to place them on the Tyrolean border to prevent the Italians from marching in. In May of 1915, the German army raised the Alpenkorps under Generalleutnant Konrad Graf von Dellmensingen and his chief of staff, Major Friedrich von Willisen. So on the 23rd of May 1915, as the Italian ambassador was delivering the declaration of war to Vienna, von Falkenhayn gathered the Alpenkorps in Lagerlechfeld near Augsburg, just north of Munich. But because the declaration of war had just come in that same day, the troops didn't get the rest and recuperation that they expected. The troops were immediately moved by train south into Tyrol. The entire 6th Württemberg mountain artillery were delayed in Ludwigsburg because they just didn't have any horses, any men, any equipment. So it was quite chaotic, but luckily they had time. Because you see, the Germans couldn't actually fight the Italians. The Italians had declared war on Austria, not on Germany. And Germany didn't decide to declare war on Italy or anything. They weren't at war. So the Alpenkorps were just sitting to roll, unable to fight. They were based along the railway lines in the northern part of South Tyrol, near like Bozen and all that, for rapid deployment. Because although they can't take any offensive action, they might be able to get away with defensive action without making anyone too upset, or at least any more upset than they already were, considering there was a world war going on. But even if the Germans were going to attack, how would it have gone? I mean, most of the troops there weren't actually mountain troops. You know, despite popular memories of Jaegers, they weren't officially mountain troops, they were just skirmishers. So really, the entire Alpenkorps had to be re-equipped, especially the Bavarian troops with very limited mounting experience. First thing to go, of course, were those great big, tall leather marching boots. They were not suited for climbing mountains at all. They were replaced with low boots. Much like these boots here. These are actually an Austrian pattern, although some boots were procured, private purchase. The Germans would eventually go on to make their own pattern of mountain boots, but this was not until around about 1917. With them, you would wear either puttees, long socks, or both as your wraps. Most of the German army at this time were really against it, so in terms of the German army, the Alpenkorps were quite a bit further ahead. You don't tend to see puttees, at least, until around about 1918. If you watch some of our previous videos as well, you would have seen James present his kit, he's got a brim added to his Feldmütze. As well, sometimes, it's not as common, but you do see like the Austrian style canvas packs. There was a massive Austrian influence with how the Alpenkorps re-equipped itself. As well, you tend to see ice picks, walking sticks for hiking, or even great big, what they call Alpenstock, which were like big 6-foot bamboo poles with metal spikes for climbing up hills, because it is very hilly and very mountainous in Tyrol. Most of the regiments in the Alpenkorps did abandon the G98 for a shorter carbine, the Car 98AZ, though the light infantry regiment, they kept their long rifles throughout the war. I couldn't tell you why, but it's just what they prefer to use. So with the Alpenkorps now appropriately equipped for the front, how did they fare in combat? Well, the Austrian General Denkel transferred command of sectors 4 and 5 in southeast Tyrol to Konrad Kraft. Due to the lack of an official declaration of war, though, as I've said before, the Germans weren't allowed to cross the border at any point. They were more defensive if anything went really peaked on. The Kaiser himself had to get involved and strictly forbade any troops to cross the Italian border. And Konrad Kraft then supplemented it with his own order. He would say that the defence of the sectors were primarily down to the Austrian garrisons. Only once the Italians had already started attacking and we could discern the direction of the attack and where the strength of their attack was, then can the Germans get involved. Nobody was really happy with this situation. Konrad von Hotzendorf was known to complain. He had a very romantic view of war. He would say how the Bavarian soldiers should rebel and get involved in the fights, go and get some glory, you know, in his very Hotzendorfy mannerisms. And he didn't understand why they were in Tyrol to begin with. If they're not here to fight, then what's the point? They're just kind of pottering about, twiddling their thumbs. And really, the troops agreed. They, of course, without the whole we should rebel, have some glory aspect, it was more of why are we up these cold, steep mountains? It's very hard living when we're not actually doing anything. Surely we'd be better deployed somewhere else. Really, in their eyes, it's just classic army decision making, you know, just coming up with random orders without any rhyme or reason, without any sort of sense. By the end of the second week in June, the 1st Battalion of the Light Infantry Regiment was deployed to Stuva, and a battalion of Jaegers were sent to long Italian words that I can't even pronounce. The Italians were repulsed, marking the first engagement of German troops against Italians in the war. After this first success, the Jaegers then moved into Col de Lana, the Mountain of Blood. Though that is a story for another time. Thank you very much for watching. This is quite different to our usual long form content. A lot more talking, a lot less things to look at, but we hope you enjoyed it. If you want to hear more about the story of the Alpenkorps, then be sure to leave a comment. Of course, up next we've got the Mountain of Blood, one of the first major engagements of the Alpenkorps in Italy. The book I've been using to research this, it's really good, is this one's in German, but there's an English version, the German mountain troops of the First World War. If you want to see any more of our kits, be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we post different events that we attend. And if you want to see anything more like this, be sure to watch some of our other videos. Although this is a different format, we do have a lot more Italian front content on this channel. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.